Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Year 2 Parent Webinar with myself, Miss Julia, as Year 2 lead, and also joining me is the lovely Miss Laura, our head teacher.
Morning, everyone.
Before we get started today, if you do have any questions as we are going along, then please use the comments section below to note down any questions, and we will try to answer them either as we're going along, if we can, or at some point after the webinar. So, Mr. Rothwell, can I have my first slide? Thank you very much. So the aims of this session really is to give you all an insight into the learning and the topics that we have been doing in Year 2 so far since the beginning of the year, but also to share with you expectations for what the children are trying to achieve by the end of this academic year, and that will be in maths, in writing, in reading, all across the board. Next slide, please, Mr. Rothwell. So despite the pandemic, our mission statement has not changed at BHPS. It still remains as nurture and challenge. We are making sure that we are still fulfilling this despite the pandemic, and no matter what stage of learning the child is at, we are still making sure that we are nurturing and challenging them. Moving on, please, Mr. Rothwell. So let's begin by looking at some of the learning that we have done so far. So at the beginning of this year, we actually started off with a topic called continents, where we learned about all of the different continents and the oceans, names of the oceans. As you can see from some of these pictures, lots and lots of our learning in Year 2 is very practical based. So in our science lessons at the beginning of the year, we were learning about animals and humans. We were looking at baby animals and how they grow into adults and how they change, and lots of different life cycles. As you can see here, we've got an example of sorry, Mr. Rothwell, I'm not done with that yet. We've got an example here of another science lesson with the children investigating different materials. We were looking at all sorts of different materials and learning new vocabulary such as flammable, or stretchy, or rigid and flexible. So learning lots of different vocabulary and exploring different materials. All of these pictures here are from our latest topic. We've been learning all about fire. So the children have had an opportunity to learn about some historical events such as the Great Fire of London, but also some important aspects like fire safety as well. And you can see we got a bit creative, and we did some wonderful junk modelling with our houses there. The other picture that you can see there is an example of one of our maths lessons. So as you can see, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the structure of our maths lessons a little bit later on in the other slides. But as you can see here, this is the way that we do the practical aspects of our maths lessons. We started off at the beginning of the year with place value, so looking at numbers, tens and ones, what numbers are made up from. So for example, 36 is made up of 3 tens and 6 ones. We also did a little bit of addition and subtraction, and again I'll show you how we actually do that a little later on in the slides. So yes, we have an example here also of our multiplication, which is our latest maths topic. We've been doing multiplication and a little bit of division as well by sharing. So moving on to the next slide, please, Mr. Rothwell. Here are some of our upcoming topics. So in science, we are now moving away from materials, and we're going to be looking at plants. For example, all about different seeds and bulbs, and the life cycles of plants, for example. You can see here I've got a couple of pictures of some other things that we're going to be looking at in maths. We're going to be looking more in detail at different 2D and 3D shapes. And also we're going to be doing some statistics, which includes things like tally charts and also pictograms. So the children will be interpreting and creating their own examples of these. Finally, to link in nicely with our fire topic, which is continuing, we're going to be looking at some newspaper reports. We're going to be looking at some real life events, for example, bushfires in Australia, but also carrying on our learning of historical events like the Great Fire of London. Thank you, Mr. Rothwell. Sorry, Miss Laura, did you want to butt in there?
No, not at all. I think you just froze a little bit there. That's wonderful.
Okay, all good. So this next slide here shows an example of what we are aiming to achieve by the end of year 2. Okay, I'll say that again. This is for the end of year 2. This is what we're aiming for. And this is a good example because it demonstrates all of the different skills, the writing skills that we've been teaching throughout the year. This child has demonstrated those within this piece of writing. So I'm just going to talk through it a little bit so that I can explain some of the features that we are looking for. So for example, you can see they have used some different suffixes. So in phonics, we've been learning suffixes like full and less, and adding EY to the end of words like shiny. So you can see this has been used in this piece of writing, like beautiful, shiny, and a little bit further down towards the end of the writing, they've used biggest and greediest. So we're teaching the children about how to remove the Y from the word and change it to an I before we add the suffix on the end. So lots of different spelling rules. Also, we can see here an understanding of contractions. So, for example, in the word didn't and wouldn't, this child has used the apostrophe to show the shortened word. They have also demonstrated an understanding of adjectives here. So we've got some description. We've got, again, beautiful, shiny, glorious, cave. Also, full stops, for example, although they're not entirely in the correct places, they have showed a demonstration that they can use full stops, and also some other various punctuation. We can see an understanding of commas here, making a list using those adjectives. And also, if I just touch on the handwriting here, we can see that the letters are sitting nicely on the line. We've got the ascenders, which are our tall letters, and our descenders, which are our letters that stretch right down under the line. So we can see that they're all of a good size, and they are reaching and sitting where they should be on the line. This piece also demonstrates an understanding of the year 2 common exception words. So we've got some of the words spelt correctly, most of the words spelt correctly actually, such as the words like have and they and all of those common exception words are all there. So I hope that helps you to understand a little bit of what we're aiming to achieve by the end of the year, just applying all of the rules and the grammatical things and the skills that we've been learning, all the way through year 2.
I think, Miss Julia, I think it's really crucial here on the writing, Mr. Rothwell, to, have understanding that your child will be at different levels right now, and where your child may end up may be very far away from this in so many different ways. But I think this is where we're aiming for. Obviously, handwriting is a key thing, but some children are still struggling with their joins, and for them print is working better. So you have to just keep encouraging. Don't focus too much on the presentation. We're really looking now at the technical side of it, really focusing on the capital letters and the full stops and the sentence structure and the spellings, and the presentation will come along, but making sure at home, if you're doing any writing, you're just keeping it as such a positive time, because otherwise obviously the children will get put off from writing at home, and you demonstrating any writing that you do and how you might be using capital letters or full stops or any punctuation as and when you're doing that.
Cool. Moving on, Mr. Rothwell, to expectations in reading. Thank you. So the children are at a great age now where they can really start to read for pleasure, which is what we're really encouraging in class. For example, if we're having reading time, then I'm also modelling as a teacher that I'm sitting down enjoying reading a book for pleasure. So we also have our class novels. We've recently been reading some Roald Dahl stories, and also we touched on a couple of stories from David Walliams, World's Worst Teachers. So your child is lucky enough to bring home 2 library books. At the moment, Miss Lees is doing a fantastic job of selecting hopefully some books that your child will enjoy reading and sharing with you at home. So obviously the library books may be a little bit over their current reading level, but those are really just a chance for you to sit down and enjoy reading those books with your child, perhaps as a an after school or a bedtime story sort of thing. And then, as you can see on the screen there, I've also got those examples of the stage reading books. So those are the ones that it is expected that your child will read themselves once they're bringing those home. So on the screen there, those are an example of the stage 6 and stage 7 reading books. So if your child is working on track for reading at the moment, then they should be reading a stage 6 or a stage 7 reading book. But yeah, just most importantly, and we'll touch on this a little later as well, just, you know, reading every day just for a few minutes is super, super important. It, well, cannot really stress how important it is for that. So yeah, we'll come back to a little bit of that in a little while, but let's move on, please, Mr. Rothwell, to the next slide. So obviously in year 2, we continue with the phonics learning. So at the beginning of this year, because of the pandemic and the home learning that the children did in year 1, we went back and we recapped on a lot of the sounds that the children would have learnt in year 1. So we began with the phase 3 sounds, and we moved on. The ones that you can see on the screen here are the phase 5 sounds. So what we want the children to understand now is that, you know, for example, where you have some different sounds like owl, like cloud with the OU, and then when you have the other owl sound, for example, OW, like in the word brown. So they need to be thinking and applying their phonics knowledge, which is the right owl sound to use in which word. So we're just exploring and recapping and revising all of these different sounds. And then more recently, we have moved on to what we call phase 6, which is learning very much about, as I just mentioned in the writing, the spelling rules, adding suffixes to the end of words, like these examples here, like full and less and meant. And also we'll be moving on to looking at some prefixes, so putting on the beginning of the words like un and ill, for example. So that's where we are working at the moment. Some children will be going back to revisit some of the sounds if their class teacher feels like they need to. But at the moment, we're very much looking at spelling rules. We also did look at, for example, past tense words, how to change words into past tense by adding ed, but also some irregular versions of the words. Next slide, please. Okie dokie. So expectations in maths. I've just made a little list here of what we're aiming to achieve, again, by the end of year 2. And I've also got some picture examples here of some of the different ways that your child may be learning, for example, how to add or how to multiply. So I'll just talk through some of the pictures first. The picture at the top is, again, another example of how we might teach division or multiplication. You can see we've got the cubes there, the manipulatives arranged, and the children are doing this activity very practically on the tables in front of them. So they're arranging. You can see this child has arranged the sum of 4 lots of 4, so 4 times 4 as 16. So that's what we call a concrete example. So we're starting with the practical, the concrete, before we move on to looking at the pictorial examples, which you can see a little bit further down underneath. We have examples of number lines. We have examples of the part-whole model. And then finally, the children move on to the abstract, which is when they're actually starting to write the sums for themselves. So as you can see at the bottom, right down there, we've got the pictorial version of what we call column addition. And then in the middle, the sum written, that is the abstract version. So we use a range of different methods. We try to ensure that the children have different opportunities to see the maths and to understand the maths. We try to, what's the word, Miss Laura?
Go through the whole process so they can visualize using the real objects. It's so crucial that the children at the very beginning do have that opportunity to practically hold these objects, to physically see them, and then also to go through the process of the pictorial sort of elements of it as well, so that then they've got a really, really good understanding. It might be very easy to skip all of that and go through to the column, for example, addition, but the understanding when they come to complex word problems or solving other issues, that deeper understanding may not be there. So it's so important to make sure that they go through these steps before actually getting to the abstract element.
Thank you. So as I said, down the side here, we have some of the objectives that we're trying to achieve by the end of the year. So counting in our 2s, 5s, 10s and 3s, using the greater than and less than signs to be able to compare and order numbers. So which numbers are bigger and smaller. Reading and writing numbers up to 100, and then understanding each digit in a 2-digit number. So can they recognize the 10s and the 1s in a 2-digit number? We would like them to be able to know their pairs of numbers to 10 and 20. So, for example, 6 and 4 to make 10, and then 13 and 7 to make 20, for example. And then also for multiplication, we start looking at times tables in year 2. So hopefully relating their counting in 2s, 5s and 10s to be able to link that to then understanding it as the 2 times table, and then the 5 times table and the 10 times table. So practicing, lots of that at home, so they can mentally recall very rapidly their 2, 5 and 10 times tables. And then, as I mentioned already, we do lots of practical work in year 2, so they can understand multiplication first of all as groups of or lots of. So we do it in arrays like in the picture, and then same with division, starting off by sharing objects, counting objects, and yes, that's what we're looking to achieve by the end of the year.
With the multiplication, I know some of these things and the facts to 10 and 20, they're quite a nice thing to do or a quick thing to do in the car. If you're just driving along, to quick fire questions to the back seats, you know, of what number goes with 17 to make 20 or 6 to make 20 and so forth. And again, knowing the 2, 5s and 10s, but, you know, mixed up, they might be able to count in 2s and 5s and just reel it off. But if you said to them, okay, what's 2 6s or 3 times 10, and in different order, it's certainly just something to keep them really fresh and quick recall. Is definitely something how you can easily help at home or on car journeys.
Mm-hmm. And there's also some really fun online games that you can play also to help with that. So as a school, we have TT Rockstars, which the children are loving, and that's good because as a teacher, we can set which times tables we want the children to practice at home. There's also other games such as Hit the Button, which is just another fun way for them to be able to practice their times tables at home. Cool. Next slide, please, Mr. Rothwell. So if you did want any further information about our calculation policy or any other examples of how we teach things in year 2, then you can find our calculation policy for maths on our mobile app. So please do take a look at that if you'd like any further information.
Yeah, and these 2 documents, if you go into the app and you go to the policies section, you'll see the calculation policy there. And there's 2 policies, one for the addition and subtraction and one for multiplication and division. And these are really fantastic resources for you at home. If you're thinking, goodness, they teach it so differently to how I was learning at school. These really do very simply talk you through the exact steps of how the process that we're using in school that you guys can then carry on at home, so that we're following the same methods and systems together. So definitely worth checking out. Okay, so as a school, we have each month a different oracy focus modelled by Miss Sasha. I just wanted to explain different opportunities that we give the children in class when it comes to their oracy skills. For example, we use peer talk, so from their socially distanced spaces, they can still have the opportunity to chat their thoughts through with their peers. We also encourage, the actual listening part is equally as important as the speaking part. So, for example, when asking questions as a teacher, the children are very much encouraged to listen. They might be asked to perhaps repeat an answer that another child has given. So just to make sure that they are focusing and listening to what everybody is saying at that time.
And also they'll be asked if they perhaps agree or disagree with what that child has said. So we're trying to really build on those oracy skills. You can see also we have these slant and shape oracy rules that we follow in school. So just, encouraging the children to nod and track the speaker, making sure that they're making eye contact, showing that they're actually doing good listening, and articulating when they are speaking. And these are things, again, that you can really model when you're doing, family talk at home, for example, just to make sure you're modeling good talking skills, good listening skills, again, the eye contact. And yeah, Miss Laura, was there anything that you'd like to add about oracy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, speaking and listening is so key in children. It's helping to develop their reading and their writing skills. There's a saying that if you can't say it, they won't be able to write it. So really, really modelling good use of language, good vocabulary, challenging them to use, different vocabulary. Feel free to use these bigger words, and they will get used to hearing them. And the value of family talk at home is absolutely crucial. If you're just reading and you're chatting at home and practicing your tables, that really are some of the key things. But the family talk, whether you're in the car again or you're at home at the dinner table, having those discussions, you retelling, times that you experienced when you were little, or putting out questions, or what do you think about this, having these discussions and these debates, and encouraging your children to answer. We all know it's the very simple answer when you ask your children, did you have a nice day? Yes. Or and what did you learn at school today? And really trying to encourage and asking the right questions to get your children to chat and talk. It's so crucial, and something we feel incredibly passionate about here at Victory Heights. So definitely have a go at home, try to talk much. And again, modelling good chat and making sure we're away from our own devices and providing eye contact and listening to each other. So crucial.
Okay, so yeah, just going back to what you can be doing to support your child at home. As the picture says just there, we've got 3 examples, student A, student B and student C. So you can see if they're reading at home, even just for 1 minute or 5 minutes or 20 minutes, you can see how much vocabulary they're going to be exposed to, how much they're going to hear, and then that, like Miss Laura said, is going to improve their oracy and their writing skills. So that valuable reading time at home is really crucial. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day, then it's super important. So yeah, just these are the key things that you can be doing to support at home. Just a little bit of reading, practicing those spellings, so that you can help them embed their phonics knowledge that we've been learning at school. A little bit of times tables practice, even if it's just 5 minutes of these every day. 5 minutes reading, 5 minutes spelling practice, 5 minutes times tables, and then that all important oracy stuff that Miss Laura just mentioned too. So not hours and hours of work after school each day. Just those little bits, those little moments that you can grab really do make a massive impact on their learning. Okay, so just to finish off, just a few little reminders. Having headphones in the classroom is super helpful when the children are doing their specialist lessons, and the teacher has sent the lesson to Seesaw and they need to listen to a song or they need to listen to a video. Then it's really super helpful for the children to all have headphones for that. So please send in headphones with your child. Again, just making sure that their Chromebooks are charged up for the beginning of every day. In year 2, obviously we're encouraging the children to be as independent as possible. So for example, little things that you can be doing at home to help out with that. For example, in the classroom, if they're looking for something in their bag and they're not entirely sure where it is because maybe they haven't packed their bag themselves, so it might be a good opportunity for them to have the chance to pack their own school bag at home, so that then they're able to locate things a little bit more easily. In school, quite often we have, I can't find it, it's not there. my mummy didn't pack it, for example. So just little opportunities to be a bit more independent, which will again in turn help us in school as well. Water on PE days. We tend to run out of water a lot on days that we have PE. So maybe on PE days we can send in either a coin or an extra water bottle. That would be super helpful. And last one, masks that fit. I know a lot of the children are coming to school wearing adult masks, which are kind of slipping off their face and kind of defeating the purpose really of actually having that mask on. So if we are able to get those child-friendly masks, that would be awesome. And I think that just about wraps it up from me. I'm not sure if there's any questions, Mr. Rothwell, or anything else, Miss Laura, that you would like to add here.
Oh, thank you, Miss Julia. I know parents, it's incredibly challenging at these times where you don't always have the same opportunity that we used to have to chat in the playground, to talk to your teacher as much as you used to. But please do make sure that you're reaching out to your teacher either via email or contacting Trish, our parent liaison, or your class rep for support. We will be holding more parent meetings at the end of this term, so before we break up in March. So you will have an opportunity to have a Zoom meeting with your class teacher again. But please don't hold back. If you've got any concerns or worries, do make sure you're reaching out to your class teacher so that you can be immediately helped, because I know that all those teachers are ready there to help as much as they can. And we thank you so much for all your patience during these very crazy COVID times massively. But I can see we have a question here. The maths resources to aid learning at home, Miss Julia.
I would say just use anything that you have really. If it comes to things like division, like sharing, get out your pasta pieces, or literally anything that you have that can be manipulated by the children. I would say that was probably the best thing to do for that. So they're getting the chance to do the practical stuff at home with you as well.
But that calculation policy, the calculation policy that is available on the app is really fantastic at showing you exactly how you can support at home as well. Whether you're using buttons or bananas or whatever you can put your hands on in your house, whether it's Play-Doh bits, those are really, really fantastic. And then you just need a paper and a pencil. It doesn't need to be a lot more complicated. I know TT Rockstars is available. The children can access that at home. And then along with other things like Spelling Shed and Education City.
Yeah, or if there's anything more specific that you would like, perhaps you can talk to your child's class teacher about that. So they might be able to help you out, supply you with a little something.
Now, I know our VH parents aren't normally this quiet, so please do ask. If you have questions, please use the chat channel. But otherwise, please do message Miss Julia after this, or your class teacher with any other questions that you have. I hope you found this session useful. It was something we were just going to try out. We're very aware that parents we're not accessible as much as we used to be. So I do hope that something like this can help you. I can see one more question has come in here about writing is the most challenging, and how can we get more help with that?
With the writing again, in terms of writing, it's important to feed in those other skills, like if we're developing our oracy skills, and then that is in turn going to help with the writing. It depends on which aspect exactly of writing that it is, if it's the sentence structure or the spelling. Depending on what it is, will depend on how we can help with that.
I know, that's fantastic.
I think that's Wade's mum. If you get in touch with me, and we can talk a bit further about that.
But look out for different opportunities for writing at home as well, whether you might be writing an email to a relative at home, or writing a letter that you could try to post in some way, or shopping lists, things like that, different reasons, writing their own birthday cards to their friends, or making cards for other people, just looking for those easy, natural, positive opportunities. Definitely not to sit down and write a story unless that's something they want to do. It's really keeping it so positive. Yeah, and maybe they have a fantastic, maybe they're really, sorry, Miss Julia, maybe they're really interested in dinosaurs. I know boys particularly really love non-fiction writing, so they could draw a picture of their favorite animal or a dinosaur and then label it. Again, this is the writing that's coming into it. And don't worry too much, don't focus too much on what they're not doing right, but keeping it so positive so that they're building up the confidence to keep having a go and experimenting, rather than feeling, oh, this doesn't look right, or it's not spelt right, or it hasn't got this, or it hasn't got that. I think it's really looking for those opportunities and making writing really pleasurable. But the language side of it really comes from the talk at home. Again, modelling that fantastic vocabulary, asking those questions together, discussing, debating, having family chats is absolutely crucial for helping with writing. Are there any more questions? I think we are nearly there, but thank you, Miss Julia. And there is a recording available afterwards on the YouTube channel. But thank you so much, Miss Julia. I hope parents, you found this useful. And I know the children have got their sports day today, Miss Julia, so we should get going. And you keep safe, everybody. Take care, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.